Okay, so I'm making a video as opposed to making a phone call. Now, I always say that we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought plus our feeling emotion creates the reality, and we're connected to other spiritual human beings. Now, this video is made totally on spec, I have to say, because, I will just say that I was in the supermarket a couple of months ago and I heard a song playing in the supermarket. And I couldn't help but take notice of it, even though, as you know, I'm not a great fan of music being played in public places, but that's not the point. This song was played and I had not really heard it before. But as usual, of course, I didn't get all the lyrics because it's in a supermarket, but I got the chorus. A chorus, of course, is enough to get most people in, and sometimes it's the only reason you will like a song. You won't actually study all the lyrics. Now, the song, strangely enough, after my introduction, let me just say that, I caught the chorus, and the chorus is essentially, are we human or are we dancers? And at the time, it stopped me in my tracks in the supermarket because I thought, what a strange song. Why would someone write such a song? Are we human or are we dancers? What does it mean? But at any rate, I let it go, even though I remembered it. And just recently, of course, I looked it up. And basically, I can't get the song out of my head. So that is why I'm making the video, because it just goes round and round and round, which is what happens to us. That is why it's important that, as I've said, because we are human beings, which are spiritual beings. I'm going to go on about the song now. What you get inside your head goes round and round. Just like when you get a song, and this is something I've complained about for years, because I will, even if I accidentally listen to a song, it will just go round and round for days because I'm unable to get it out of my head. And this can be used by the Matrix, if you think about it. But either way, because the Matrix is all around, just as music is all around, and music is part of the Matrix. Everything is part of the Matrix. Except for, although they are part of it now too, strangely enough, yes, of course. But human beings are also part of the Matrix. But it is an unnatural connection for a human being, in my way of looking at it. Okay, I've went through this before. But either way, I'm going to go on to the song. Now, the song, I gave you the chorus. Are we human or are we dancers? Of course, when I actually sing it, like it goes around in my head, and this is why I say everything's open to interpretation, but I looked up the correct lyrics on the computer, okay? So the correct lyrics are we human or are we dancers? Whereas in my head, it goes around as, are we human or only dancers? So that's strange, isn't it? See, I see it as only dancers, whereas the lyrics are we human or are we dancers? It is a song that, I would say it's one of those songs that when I listen to it, and I've listened to it over the last few days, and I had actually heard it because this I'm going to get too excited. That's a human trait, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because everything in a matrix that is really a good thing can be used against too, because it's a matrix. So human emotion, which is the be and end all in a way, if you're in a different environment to where that is a creative, natural, beneficial thing, in a matrix it can go one way or the other because the matrix is good, bad, the matrix is right, wrong. But either way, even in saying that, this is why I don't like making the videos, because we're in a matrix. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're in a matrix that has the ability to read everything, to know everything, because of what the human has given to the matrix. See, in the matrix, I'm supposed to be going on about the song. In the matrix, the human being is the center of the matrix, but the matrix uses the human being to influence the matrix in a positive way. But of course the matrix is all negative because it's a negative realm by a human comparison is what I mean. So therefore everything that is good will be used for negative, and the human will be a part of that. This is the what I see as, work it out yourself, Any rate, I'll go on to the song before I go on about the matrix. Forget the matrix, but of course you can't forget the matrix because even the song is of the matrix. The group is of the matrix. I was familiar with the group of this song before I knew other songs of this group. Years ago, I liked the group. The group's called The Killers. I liked a group called The Killers. Interesting. I never really queried that at the time because I liked the visuals and I liked other songs. This song, which is probably their best song, I was not familiar with, which is strange. The Matrix must have hid it from me till now. I'm being funny here, but, well, the truth is, if I had heard this song 5 years ago, I would have thought it was a brilliant song. I may have even heard it, but it would have just escaped me. It would have went over my head, shall we say. I would have thought, what a fascinating song, but I would have thought, interesting. But it's really nonsensical. Because why would you ask a question like, are we human or are we dancers? Like even back then I would have thought, now of course I take it in a very serious light, but and of course the song is open to interpretation. But back then I would have just thought, are we human or are we just, I suppose I would have just thought, are we just dancers? Are we just non-existent in a funny kind of way? But that is interesting because when I looked up the lyrics and went through them, I actually only saw one review of the song. And it was interesting because I say there's always a couple of ways of looking at everything in a matrix. And it's interesting that this quite what I would call much more profound view than what you'll get from me. But it's a view of the Matrix, I think, myself. Whereas my view is only what I think about it. And it doesn't mean that it's meant to be interpreted that way. No, I would think that the way I interpret the song may not be how many people would interpret it, and may not be how the group called the Killers want you to interpret it. So a group called the Killers asks the question, are we human or are we dancers? Is that them asking themselves that question? Is it asking me that question? Is it asking you that question? Is it asking, other people? I'm saying. But, I say everything is of the Matrix. All the best of everything on the stage of the Matrix, because the Matrix is a stage played out, which, a bit like the old saying that I got there again. I only got all this stuff recently, but I've heard it all before. It's just that you just put it into something recently. The famous Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage and we're but players. Well, yes, that was what he was saying. And you wonder why some of these very well-known people would say such, what are really strange things in a way. But we take them and say, well, that's very profound from the Matrix. Of course, back then we wouldn't have said that's from the Matrix. We'd have said, well, that is just profound from an individual human person. But is it? Or is it not? Of course, I have my own way of looking at it. I say everything is of the Matrix, except for some who are not of the Matrix. But distinguishing who is of the Matrix and who isn't is rather hard. And also, like there are many of the Matrix who would think they aren't of the Matrix too. But, the Matrix is too complicated for most of us to comprehend. So we're playing in it regardless. And if you don't accept the reality that you're playing in a Matrix, then you're playing for the Matrix. You probably are. No matter how human you are. But either way, I'm going to go on to the song. Because there are three ways of looking at it, but I'm only going to read the lyrics, and I haven't even got them in front of me. I just listened to it before I made the video. Which is unprofessional, but human, so bear with me. I would advise that you look up this song yourself and look up the lyrics after. That way you can piece it together better. Now, the chorus alone is, are we human or only dancers? Now, notice how I automatically said only dancers. And I'll stick with that because it's my video. When I used to be making the video where I was only talking to myself, I was comfortable to do this. It's a bit harder when you think that there is even one person listening, because you're like, hey, you want to not get it wrong. And you also want to be broad, and you don't want to be to where you think you know it all, when you know that you don't. But even knowing what you know, it's kind of futile in the Matrix in some ways, I often think, because knowing something doesn't seem to change it. Because, as I've said before, it's all frequency and vibration and stuff. So therefore, knowledge and intellect is of the matrix. It doesn't change the earth or the matrix or the world, depending on how you want to look at it. If you want to look at it as a natural, real world, you can. As I've said before, it isn't, it's a matrix. But, and I say that, not trying to say if you think it's a natural world that you're wrong, but look, it is a matrix, as I've said before 1,000 times. It doesn't matter even if it was a real world, it would still be a matrix. It's always been a matrix to some extent. It's just that now we have a total technological matrix. That is the ultimate matrix. That is where a human is totally ostracized, totally out on their own, because, if you're in a natural world, you could be still in a matrix to where, it's not totally random and it's not totally, everything just falling, but, because it's natural, the human will have still more ability to maneuver in a matrix. The more artificial it gets, the more technological it gets, in my way of looking at it. To me, it's a reality, a hard reality. I can't emphasize it enough. I can't even stress how much difference it makes. It's the difference between total oblivion and total creation, really. If without sounding fancy, and you'll have to just put that in your own simple way, because that probably doesn't make too much sense. But I'm feeling a little bit funny today. When I say funny, I mean, see, the song has upset me in a way. That's the funny thing. Like, you could say, oh, this is a brilliant song. Can you despise something that is brilliant? Can you dislike something that is brilliant? Can you be in a double mind about something? Well, yes, because you're in a matrix. Because the matrix will throw back to you something brilliant. The matrix will throw back to you the best of the human. It will throw it in your face. It'll slap you in the face. It'll knock you over with it. And then it will laugh. The matrix likes to laugh. It mostly likes to laugh at me and you. And it laughs when you think like I am, to where you are emotional about a matrix song. It's like this is you. But it is ours. We have your kind. We have full dominion over your reality. It is our world. It's not your world. You're in a matrix. You're not meant to be in a matrix. You must play our game. I've went off the song. I haven't even got onto the song. I am so sorry for that. I shouldn't apologise though. Not to those that listen, because, it's, I'm sorry that I can't put these things across better, and I'm sorry that I'm under the influence of the matrix, and I'm sorry that I have to make a video, and I'm sorry that I have to make a video that says are we human or are we dancers? As I said before, I said that in a previous video, I feel ridiculous talking about what it is to be human. But that is because this reality is not what we thought it was. So we have to do this, even though we don't fully understand it. You know, like I say all the stuff I say, and I think it's so, but comprehending it is still hard. Because, you know, you're still in your own little matrix reality that's confined and limited. And then to know there is something else, but to not be able to actually see it directly, not to be able to really touch it, to only catch glimpses of it, shall we say, and to be piecing together a puzzle whilst not really seeing that puzzle is very disturbing and very hard. And that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. And, you know, I wouldn't be doing it and can't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't have done it either. But like I say, if the matrix knocks you over and throws it in your face, you know, you haven't got a choice. So it's not like it's so, you know, so I don't actually, you know, I'm not critical of people that choose to ignore the matrix. In fact, I get it, because I would have done the same thing if it wasn't right in my face. And it's not right in my face because I've sought it. It's right in my face because the matrix has thrown it in my face. Because the matrix does that eventually to most humans, to most people, okay? I feel stupid saying humans or people because they're the same thing, but they're actually not, in the sense that, yes, we will go to the song now. Because if this group, you know, called the Killers, who were very successful a few years ago, you know, produced this song and put it out there, and it was a reasonable hit, I would imagine, then, you know, this is something that obviously others speculate on and are aware of. And, you know, you have to say, why would you write such a song? Why would you produce such a song? What are you singing about? Some have said that being a dancer, at least this was just, you see, this didn't even occur to me. I actually just take the song one way. You know how I normally say I've got at least 3 options. And I realise now there are options, because you have to remember that how I interpret the song is coming from a human being in a matrix, whereas those that produce the song and sing the song, they're coming from the point of view of being a demigod of the matrix. So they may well, you know, when they say, are you human or are you a dancer? They may see a dancer as a good thing. It sounds good, doesn't it, to be a dancer? Of course, they could be just throwing up the human idea back to the human too, because, like I say, everything is of the matrix. So therefore, you know, in order for the matrix to keep people entertained, when I say entertained, I mean keep them in the matrix, keep them of the matrix, keep them listening to the matrix, even if it's only through a song, because the song then is through the demigods. This is your matrix, you know, it's like that. Any rate, if I can concentrate, which I'm finding hard, I think it starts with I did my best to notice when a call came down the line. I was brought up to surrender. This is, I should have the lyrics written out in front of me. I was going to write every lyric out in front like with the previous one, but I have not. So I've only got a few little words because I just jotted and I couldn't keep up with the song naturally to write it down. Now, this idea of surrendering. Why would, a person or someone who's singing a song say that they have been put in a position of whether they should surrender? Surrender what? Well, then again, it's surrendering something, isn't it? And then it says, close your eyes, clear your heart. Close your eyes. Clear your heart. Cut the cord. Cut what cord? Surrender. Close your eyes. Clear your heart. Cut the cord. Cut a connection. So are we human or are we only dancers? And then the song goes on, and I've only written a few words here, so I'll have to try to get the lyrics clear. Say goodbye to grace and virtue, I think it was. Grace and virtue. Say goodbye to grace and virtue. Send my condolences to good. And then pretty much saying goodbye to soul and romance. So you're saying goodbye to soul and romance. You're saying goodbye to grace and virtue. Give my condolences. Goodbye to good. You've got to let me go. That's the song. This artist, if you like, is singing. I've surrendered. I'm saying goodbye to certain things that were part of that person, or part of what? To be human? Because to me, sure, it may seem that in this intellectual, technical world that we live in now, that romance, yes, is foolish, that romance seems silly. And it can be used against you, sure. I've said this before. Human feelings and emotions, which are to be an end-all of everything, can be used as a weapon just as much as a creative force if you are in the wrong environment or if you are surrounded by the wrong circumstances, the wrong people, etc., etc. We all know this to some extent. It's just that we don't realise how full on it is. Now, I'm sounding like a philosopher here, and that's like this song. Everything, can be turned into something profound, and then that profoundness becomes intellectual. Intellect is of the matrix. So once again, every time you do anything, you are playing in the matrix, or at least you'll be drawn into playing into it, and then the matrix will look impressive. So what do you do about it? Now let me see, what are the lyrics again? Send my regards to Grace and Virtue. Send my condolences to Good. Say goodbye to Soul and Romance. They always did the best they could. This is, saying goodbye to humanity, or to what it is to be a human, as ridiculous as it sounds. Close your eyes, clear your heart, cut the cord. Cut the cord. Cut what cord? Separate from your humanness. Be your own being, because a human is in a matrix. But even in a matrix, maybe we're meant to be in touch with something else. Maybe. Cut the cord. If you're in a matrix, why do you need to cut a cord? Why would you cut a cord? Why would you cut a cord? Is that cutting a cord to what is outside the matrix? Because as I've said before, of course I don't know this. I'm talking about it, but I don't know it. It's speculation, it's fairy tale, it's fantasy. But, I'm going with the fairy tales and the fantasies as usual, and I'm allowed to because I'm talking about a song, I'm talking about fantasy. You can interpret music, you can interpret fairy tales, you can interpret fantasies any way you choose. There probably is a correct way of looking at all of this. In other words, a bottom line basic essence that is correct. But that doesn't mean that everything isn't open to each person's interpretation. So you can interpret it any way you want. Doesn't mean it's correct, just as you might say I'm not correct. Okay? But there probably is a correct. Some people say that music is open to interpretation. Even some artists will say, I'm going to leave it to everyone's interpretation. I'm not going to say what I originally had in mind. Or maybe the artist hopes you will interpret it along a certain line. Of course an artist hopes you will interpret along a certain line. How can an artist or a group, how can the Killers not hope that you will interpret the Are You Human or Are You Dancers in the way that they are presenting the song? There are many interpretations, but I would imagine that they would hope that you will interpret it the way that they designed the song to be interpreted. We're in a matrix, so that doesn't mean, in my way of looking at it, do I want to interpret every song the way the matrix wants me to interpret the song, or the way the artist wants me to interpret the song? Should I? I should, but I don't, and I'm not going to, because it is of the matrix. So therefore I'm going to, but either way, when I heard this song, I just automatically interpret a song now the way I will interpret it, without sounding too uppity about it. It's only a song. But it's a song that, for me does get the feelings going, shall we say. The song makes me feel full and happy. But at the same time, the song makes me extremely negative and depressed and angry. And also I'm saying, this is a song that I personally don't think, like I say, when I first heard it, I'm like, why would you write a song like this? Should there be dancers and humans? Should you even look at it that way? But, this is a separation song in a way. And it's a song, implying that there is, that something is better than another, isn't it, if you really look at it? Because, are you a human or are you a dancer? The fact that I just automatically interpreted it and actually have been singing it as, are you human or only dancers? You see, that's just me, but, a dancer implies a creative thing. Dance is creative. I used to like dance when I was young. But, everything is of the matrix, so even what is creative is of the matrix. Of course, as I've said before, it doesn't change the reality that it started with the human being. The matrix does not, the matrix doesn't create. But then again, of course, it does create. What the matrix does is this. And I don't know if I can explain it very well, but it's quite simple in a way. As I've said before, the homeless beggar on the street corner with his hat out, strumming a pathetical broken guitar, and he may or may not have a voice, and he may or may not be able to make a really good song. But he's a creative human being. And he thinks. The matrix listens to the thinking. The matrix then creates a song from the homeless beggar with the hat out. The matrix then creates a song from the thinking of that person. The matrix can create, but it can't create without the original idea or thought, which only comes. The matrix cannot create without the original single thought or idea from the human. But it can create something that appears much better than that original thought or idea. But without that, there is no, are you human or are you dancer song. There is no demigod group. There is no entertainers. There is no musicians. Because they just do not get ideas. They do not get thoughts. But boy, can they create masterpieces out of a human thought or idea or thinking. And also, this is very hard to explain and hard for me to grasp too. The reason that although they can make music, write scripts, act to their heart's content, sing to their heart's content, because they can create good voices too, because everything is technical. They have the know-how, you know. But the reason that they do that and need to do that is because in order to keep human beings playing in the matrix, the music has to have a human quality. It's like if you're trying to create something for a given market, shall we say. You have to understand the market. And if you don't understand the market because you're technical beings, you know, the God of the matrix is a technical God entity. A technical being by nature, a technical being by all its means. I don't quite know how to explain that. Technology is its domain, its means of expression, its means of creativity. It's everything is technical. Nothing is natural. Nothing is created as a thought. It's very hard to explain because it even gets over my head. Because as a human being, we've lost, and I never had, you know, the understanding of how, you know, when you're in a technical matrix and you see the difference between something that is pure, something that is incomparable to this technical reality that is trash by comparison to the human, but that is now being elevated to something more. Are we human or are we dancers? The dancer is the superior being. The dancer is being elevated to a position of the demigod. The dancer appears to have more, and the human being is relegated to nothing. See, the dancer is the demigod of the matrix, the music of the matrix that came from the beggar, the poor soul with the hat on the corner with his hat out hoping for a penny, that cannot create a masterpiece, cannot sing too well. But without that original thought, that original idea, that human original thought, there is never going to be the creation of the demigods, the There's never going to be a song called Human. The song's called Human. Why would a human sing such a song? Like if I was a human, see, that's what it's got to. If I was a human, but I'm putting myself in the position of the demigod, the group's called the Killers, but it doesn't matter. It could be any artist of the Matrix. I like to say their name because I think it's interesting that you call yourself the Killers. But of course they are killers because they are killers of, like the song says, they are killers. They have killed off, they've cut the cord. See, their own song, they're telling you, they have cut their cord, they have closed their eyes, they've cleared their heart, they've said goodbye to good, give my condolences to good, give my regards to grace and virtue. You always did the best you could, but we're not interested. And give my regards to devotion. You taught me everything I know. Give my regards to devotion. I probably got some of these lyrics slightly wrong, but the gist is still the same. So if I've got in other words, when I say give my regards to devotion, that's kind of the gist, but it may be on the other lyrics. But it's all the same thing. It's all like, give my regards to devotion. You taught me everything I know. In other words, they have took from the human. They have learned everything they know from the human. You taught me everything I know. Devotion, because human beings, with their feelings and their emotions, like I say, it can be used. If you're in a matrix, your good qualities will be used. Your devotion will be used by the matrix to teach them, to show them everything. You will teach them all you know, and then they will make the matrix world from it, if you want to look at it that way. I don't know if I put that very well, but the song kind of disturbs me a bit. It disturbs me in the sense that, because we're in the position we're in now, where the matrix, where it's not like there's so many choices left. See, this song is a song about choice in a funny kind of way. But it's asking the question, are you human or are we dancers? That seems like a joke. And of course, there is a lot of joking from the Matrix in the Matrix, even though it's serious. Because many humans are dancers too, if you want to look at it that way, I would say. I mean, like, I was probably a dancer for a lot of my life. So how can you be a human and then still be a dancer? Well, I would say there are, like, the song itself is sung in the sense that someone has chosen consciously to be a dancer. Close your eyes, clear your heart, cut the cord. and you've got to let me go at another point. And it's asking the question to other human beings, because this is a matrix. This is a game. This is a game all the time. It is a game of choice. And most people, probably, and I could be wrong about this because how could I know? It's a game, it's a fantasy, so I can't know. But there are probably many humans who are playing in the matrix, but they don't know if they're a human or a dancer. And they might think, that being a dancer is better than being a human. This is, I think, what the matrix as the drums of the matrix, I think. Well, actually, they're being banged by yes, matrix technology, shall we say, whichever way you look at it, but, And the matrix has taken my thoughts and my train of, you'd say, well, that is ridiculous to blame a dog banging on something as part of the matrix. That is not comprehensible to most people. But it is the reality, because everything is of the matrix. Now, I was just going to try and finish up on this song. So you got to let me know, are you human or are you dancers? I don't think the matrix is going to let me concentrate on the lyrics. That's strange, because the matrix likes you to listen to its matrix music, but perhaps you're only meant to see the two options and not the third one. I don't know, but either way. But, so are we human or only dancers, or are we dancers? To me, when I say only dancers, because that was just how I was singing it, accidentally you could say, so clearly that was the kind of vibe I was getting. And, I try my best to be more into the vibe, shall we say, these days, as opposed to analysing it in an intellectual way. But you see, even with the matrix, this is what's got complicated for me. The more information I get about the matrix or about other things that I did not understand, it doesn't change my viewpoint, but it makes me realise how much the matrix can put its own slant on things, shall we say, and that's pretty much it. If you're a matrix and you are running a matrix, you don't want a human being that has the cord connected to something else. That's right, you do want those of the matrix. You want people in the matrix to, yes, close their eyes, clear their heart, and cut the cord. Separate from anything else that isn't the matrix, because, this is just my fantasy way of looking at the song. Because if you cut the cord, then you are going to be purely of the earth or of the matrix. In saying the earth, that sounds good, and I feel bad saying the earth, because the earth, to me, that implies a living natural thing, which is what a human being is. more complicated, more naturally able to do everything and anything than any technology could ever hope to do. But we're under the delusion, and I say it's a delusion, that technology can do more, because that's the reality that we've now been pushed into, because we're under great limitation. You know, if I'm functioning at 1% and don't know that, and don't know I'm in a matrix, and see the matrix and its demigods, and even, yes, it's music, even the song, getting my heart racing, getting my emotions to a high level. You know, this is music of the matrix, and it's music to my ears, even in the sense that, you know, I'm like, oh, how emotional, how profound, how wonderful. This is the confusion of the matrix, or the confusion of the world, or the confusion of the earth. Most people can't let go of it. Once you become of the matrix is so enticing. The matrix appears to offer all. The matrix appears to offer people much more than what, you know, the human being appears to have. Everything, you see, I think that what happens here is that human beings at some level, like myself, even no matter how materialistic or physical you are, which is fair enough, there's nothing wrong with the physical or the material. It's purely that we see it in the wrong way. And this also is a dangerous ground too. You know, because, you know, like I say, we're spiritual beings, we're human beings really in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. Yes, see, or even that becomes dangerous in a matrix. Because when we are all connected, but we're connected to the dancers, not to human beings. We're connected to the matrix, not to one another. And you say, well, that can't be right because we're human beings and the earth is all full of human beings and, you know, it's an earth. Well, no, none of this is so in my way of looking at it, you see. So even my statement will be used by the matrix so that you're connected more to the matrix. Spirituality is part of the matrix. But it's not really part of the human being. But we think it is because we have a need for it. Because you see, at some level, if you want to look at it that way, that's why human beings often think, oh, there has to be something more. There's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with this world. We all think this. And this is because we know that at some level. So then we go with the spirituality of the matrix. We go with the matrix God, the demigods. We go with that reality. I don't think I'm putting this very well at all. Dear, dear, dear. It's so hard to, that's right. But what I'm trying to say is but because we are under limitation, but we don't know we're under limitation. We just think there's something wrong. We've always all sensed there's something wrong, or that we feel isolated too. You know, at times we feel isolated. The matrix makes you feel more isolated in some ways. But it's all there is, so people go with it because it does serve. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound, you know. It's what do they call that? Some sort of Band-Aid effect. I don't know. I can't explain these things very well. we've got the wrong solution to most of our problems because we don't understand just the basic thing. If you understand, or at least you think that it's a possibility, the basic things that I would think about, like if you never ever deviate from a basic idea or what you think is the bottom line reality, as I now do, I try not to deviate at all from what I think to be so about this reality and about a human being. If you just stick on that, it's a bit like if you have a belief in something and you never deviate from it. Provided it is actually right, you can't go wrong too much. It might not be easy, but you can't really. You can, because don't forget the Matrix to some extent. They know everything that is. They understand the human being. They understand. That's why they write the songs. But they need the human element to put the songs across well to other human beings. The Matrix is a lot more about technology and intellect, as opposed to, soul and romance. And soul and romance also does belong to a lot more to the idea of natural human beings. Two natural human beings, if you want to look at it that way too. Because it's a necessary component to keep that reality going. That reality's gone. This is the reality, is that the natural reality is gone. That's the hardest thing for me to realise and accept, or to tolerate even in some ways. Even though, I could be like many people and say, hey, why should I, like the song, not be happy to cut the cord, not be happy to say goodbye to romance and soul, goodbye to good, goodbye to grace and virtue, you always did the best you could, but hey, it's not good enough now. I found something better. This other reality entices me more. This reality empowers me. Perhaps it was too hard. Perhaps, like myself, you might say, well, I've failed so much. It's easier to go with the Matrix. And I think sometimes it could be like this, and I don't want to sound too airy-fairy or too spiritual here, because, as I've said before, I think we're at a point now, at least this is how I see myself and my own reality. I couldn't be less spiritual. I couldn't be more limited. And the Matrix, offers much and appears so very superior. And there's nothing to be gained by walking away from the Matrix. Well, that's where I would differ. I say there is nothing to be gained by going with the Matrix. Yes, temporarily, there will be, it would seem more wise to go with the Matrix. I've never said you should throw wisdom out the window. But, in a Matrix, you have to throw a lot out. I think there's a saying, I got it the other day, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I had it on a good point, now I've forgotten that point because the Matrix has played around, shall we say. Or maybe I've just, if you don't do something when you think of it, yes, it's gone. But that idea of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater is a good thing in a way. See, I think that is the problem. With a lot. Oh, I've gone on trying to be too clever here, but I should have an example. But it is very easy, um, and this is the danger of being in a matrix, because I could use many examples, but they escape me at the moment. They come to me, and then if you don't put them down, or if you don't make a video straight away, they're gone. That's how the matrix works. But I'm sure the matrix will use this same thing in one of theirs, and then we bow down to the matrix and its disciples, its representations, because this is how the matrix works, as I've said before. It's just like that. And that is because we're in, as I said before, we're in the end of things, in the sense that the matrix is all now, and the human being is, a very tiny fragment of a big matrix. Because my own personal way of looking at it, or at least even what I always thought, was that, we live in a human reality. The human should be manipulating their reality, should at least have some dominion over their reality. But, this is before technology, and also in light of the reality that if you don't know what your capabilities are, if you are always, like I've said, always from the day you're born, brought up to a matrix, brought up to think a certain way, told that your reality is a certain thing. You can't ever assume that you're a human, and that because the human is the word. Okay, the human is the word that describes human beings. But, so what is the difference between a human being and a dancer? A dancer is someone who's cut the cord. And they've went into a technological reality, I would think. Because that's the reality we're living in. We're in a reality world swimming in technology. Some people seem to still be under the delusion that we're in a physical, natural world. This is just to keep the humans playing. Because, like I say, humans won't play unless they think their world is real, unless they think it's natural to some extent. I'm not sure how most humans convince themselves that they're in a natural world, when they know they're swimming in technology. But most of them do seem to do this because they can't see the technology, so they pretend it's not there. Even though they're using it, I'm using it now. It's a sin. That's another song. I should have to look into that song. I heard it years ago, some song by some group where it says, it's a sin. And I must sound nutty going off onto songs when I was meant to go. But, it's amazing how you can sing choruses and be swept away by vibration. Humans will be swept away by a vibration, the feeling, the emotion, and the vibration and the frequency of the music sweeps them away, because that's what they are, really. That's right. Unfortunately, they're being swept away by the matrix. They should be only swept away by their own feelings and emotions that are theirs, that they have some that is part of them, that they have some control over. You have no control over the matrix. You just get swept away by it. Will your system be all right? That's another lyrics of the song. Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? I didn't get that, to be honest, but some have said, will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? So I did actually get this. Sometimes the matrix gives you stuff that is correct. You just have to put it into the right puzzle or the right perspective. Because like I say, you can't play in a matrix unless you get a certain amount of things that are correct. You can't, it has to have good things. Otherwise, we just say like, that's what's happened to me, to where you once see that there is very little that is human or good, then you say, hey, I'm in a matrix. And that doesn't happen to everyone, because not everyone is hit with the matrix. But eventually, when everyone is hit with the matrix, every human will know this and will realise it and will be surprised and devastated. That is if the matrix has not completely, if you haven't already cut the cord and given yourself over to the matrix, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. So you have to be a little bit out of touch or really in touch, depending on how you look at it. I would say I've always been a little out of touch. But maybe being out of touch is appropriate if you're in a matrix. But in the sense that, I would, as I've said, and I keep reiterating this, to boredom, no doubt, and perhaps to almost, but the thing is that it probably sounds foolish or strange even to emphasize the human thing. It's just like saying the human is the be and end all. The human being is something that is the very essence of life. And I'm not going to say where that comes from or who gave it or all this sort of stuff, because that's not what the video is about. But, if you hold on to that and hold on to the idea or the reality, depending on how much you think it is true. For me, it's a reality. There is nothing else. The Matrix can play its games. The Matrix can have what it has. The Matrix can dance. In fact, the Matrix does dance. The Matrix wants to dance with its dancers, and it dances a good dance. It can do a better ballet. It can maneuver, whereas, a decrepit old human like myself that once would have dreamed of dancing greatly, is lucky to just plod around even, much less create a great ballet or a great dance. This is the mockery of the Matrix. But, and it's a reality too. That is a reality too. But it's a reality that you either go with or you choose to say, this is not what was meant to be. That's how I look at it. I say, this is not It might be good, it might be impressive, it might be this, it might be that, it might be a whole lot of things. But it was never meant to be. And you say, well, why wasn't? It is. It's evolution, isn't it? Isn't even technology progress? Isn't technology some form of evolution? No, it is not. That is my own way of looking at it. It's not evolution at all. It is not progress. It is not any of those things. It is a separate thing from a human being. A human being never needed it. It is not part of a human being. It is not a benefit to a human being. It slows a human being down. It limits a human being. It's not meant to be part of our reality, and yet it is our whole reality. See, so that's what you call being in a great big pickle. Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? Now, there's two ways of looking at that lyric. Is that from the human perspective or from the dancer perspective? Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? Because don't forget, the dancers dream too. They have their ideas. They have their own form of what they think is their spirituality, if you want to look at it. In other words, if you go away from being a human being and you think that the future for yourself is in this future technological world, if you I see people that that worry about the natural world. They worry about a matrix. They worry that the natural earth world will not be able to keep going. Is this so? Or is this a trick of the matrix? How natural is a matrix? Can a matrix die? And can you change a matrix by a physical means? If a matrix is controlled by a human and human vibration, why am I worried about the physical things affecting the matrix when it's only the vibration that affects the matrix? See, this is the unreality we live in. Or you might say, well, no, you're in the unreality because you've gone way into fairyland. You're saying we can solve the problems of the earth or the matrix, depending on which way you look at it, or the world, let's just say the world, by a human vibration, by a human thought. How ridiculous is that? You are in fairyland. Well, okay, I'm in fairyland. But if it's a matrix, even if it was a natural matrix, I would still say that it's a matrix. So as a human being, you have to be very careful. But you also just have to realise that a matrix is already, a matrix is a control system. That's what a matrix is. So, whatever is happening in a matrix is controlled by the matrix and the matrix God entity and its disciples, its minions. The human being does not really control that. They have importance because they're a human being, but they don't know that the human being does have importance because we've relinquished that. But it's a bit hard to explain. So it is kind of like it's because of Yeah, are you human or only dancers? Or are you human or are you dancers? See, I say, are you human or only dancers? But the Matrix dancers, they say, are you human or are you a dancer? Because they have the most pull in the Matrix. They have the most they are the guiding forces of the Matrix at a superficial level. But that superficial level can run deep, because if human beings believe that superficial level, if they believe that that is correct, that the Matrix and its superficial representatives, shall we say, are the true reality, and that the little human beings are nondescript and do not have any input. Well, that's the game of the Matrix. That's the way it's played. I didn't put that properly. I should delete this, I think. Let me go back to the song. Did I get that thing of, just trying to remember the lyrics. Dear. No wonder the Matrix looks good. You have someone like me making a video that looks an absolute fool. And, yes, I realised in the last video, yes, I did realise that there was stuff spilt all down my pathetical shirt type of thing. Yes, I realise all these things. Because the Matrix is only interested in, the Matrix is only interested in the thinking of the human. And I've obliged them with that, as many of us do, because we get too fed up to be bothered. And also the Matrix will always, upset you or something, to where you might spill something or have a little accident just before you do a video. So it's like that. So, of course, yes, you're not going to come across... But then again, if it's very human, it's quite likely that tomorrow you might see a Matrix representative looking very glamorous, but with maybe spilt something, because they have to be shown as very, very, very human in order for the humans to worship them, you see. They have to be better than a human, but they also have to have human traits, because real humans still like the real human traits as well. This is the confusion of the Matrix and the lure of the Matrix, to be able to suggest and to have you believe that you can seriously, as I've said before, combine technology with what is natural. It is not possible. Of course it's possible, and it is a fact, and it is reality. It is not desirable. It is not beneficial. It is a detriment to the humans, whether you're in a natural world, an artificial world, whatever world you think you're in. There is a truth, of course, underneath all of this. A bottom line reality, of course there probably is. I'm saying that, for the purpose of what I'm talking about, it's not... and because I don't have full realisation myself, and because I'm limited, etc., etc., I keep with the possibilities, or with what a lot of people would think, I'm dealing and living here in a room, okay, in a space, okay, and I see the furniture around me. It is just like the Matrix movie. That's all I see. So I'm not able to see, like in the movie, the full Matrix. I'm aware of its existence. I'm aware of those possibilities, and I think that they are more than a reality, because I see how it fits together. The minute you realise that there is a synchronicity to everything, shall we say, or an order to things, or a system, a system. Will your system be all right when you dream of home tonight? Is it the system of the Matrix? Is the Matrix God entity and its disciples and minions and representatives worried? Will their system be all right when they dream of their home tonight, their reality? Because they have a different idea of what is a reality, and they have made it tangible. They've made it real. They're making their reality real. They believe in their reality. They believe in their technology. They believe their technology is spiritual, if you want to look at it that way. This sounds all very weird, I know, but it is weird. It's weird if you're a human, but it's not weird because we're humans living in this weirdness. If you really, so it does become, like I say, from I can't even use words, and even words are used by the Matrix. You would be surprised at how even words, the Matrix wants the humans to put the words so then they can use the words for the songs and for their speeches. Whereas I get muddled up and all over the place and whatever. But because, contrary to what appears to be, this, I think, is the reality. The Matrix mind cycles, the Matrix dances. They're not on a par with a human in any possible way. And yet they're coming across as incredibly superior. They're like children, they're babies. They're babies that are being given great information, great ideas from humans. And with technology and know-how, etc., it's creating a synthetic form, an artificial form of something that is the original and the best, shall we say, if you want to look at it that way. But we're getting confused and seeing the artificial, the imitation, as better. Because it's incorporating so much of the original human into it, into its concept, into its whole being, to where it then appears to be superior. But it's hollow, it's empty. There's no point. It's quite possible that song, right, that moves and angers me greatly and brings out great emotion, which the Matrix then uses. Is being presented to me by musicians, by disciples of the Matrix that have, yes indeed, closed their eyes, cleared their heart, got rid of their heart, and cut their cords from anything that is remotely human. And they've surrendered. And they're like, please let me go. I've made my choice, if you want to look at it. And, I am like, no, I don't want you to go. You're going in the wrong direction. I'm not making sense here. But it's a game. It's a game for, look, put it bluntly, put it simply. You know, human beings must hold on to the reality that it's important to be human. But they have to be very clear about this. There's no point in all these people that I see around me that, yes, want to be human, but they want to change the human. If you want to change what is original and the best into anything else, in any way, you have cut the cord. Even I have cut the cord in my life many times. But I regret it. And if I can't get that cord back or get that connection back, I still don't want this matrix. Better to be gone completely than to be a part of something that is not right, that preaches this rubbish and that screws and turns us into screw looses, screws with your mind and turns you into a screw loose. And that, of course, is part of the matrix too, because, you know, it's good if the human beings look screwy, because then the matrix and technology looks better. It's very hard to explain this because it's like you're talking about things that like I say, you have to combine everything, you know, and you can't tell the difference anyway. You can't tell the difference, you know, and I can't tell the difference. You know, I can't tell the difference between what is real and what isn't, or what is authentic and what isn't, or what is original and what isn't. I can't tell the difference. I can make these videos and ramble about the matrix and all these things, but I still cannot in reality tell the difference most of the time. So really all you can do, I would say, and this is very hard too, because if you're in a matrix, and humans don't like to be totally on their own, but, you know, you have to face the reality now that if you are not of the matrix, then you are on your own, and you will be isolated. And so you know, so you can't get, and if you can't get strength from yourself, and the matrix is depleting you to where you are at your lowest level, and you can't get strength from any others much, because there are no others. There are only the others of the matrix, the others that have taken over, you know, who is real and who isn't. The others movie, where you're dealing, you know, I've gone off onto a tangent. I'm going to have to fold up here because the sun's coming up and I'm starting to not make sense. But that song really got to me, you know, and it's very, it really represents the matrix. I'm floundering for words here, you know. The English language doesn't give you enough, or it gives you too much, but also the matrix uses these same words. You say, what do you mean by the matrix using the same words? Well, look, the matrix is not real. The matrix is a counterfeit. It's a counterfeit reality. It's a false reality. So human beings are living in a counterfeit, false reality that they think is real, that they want to be real, that they need to be real to keep your sanity almost. But it is not. So, and then you're dealing with other human beings that believe in that. So you look, so you can't communicate with other human beings. And then, of course, you have humans that have turned to the dark side in their personalities and in their attitude, because the Matrix has, the Matrix and us, the greatest trick the Matrix does have, I would say, is turning, as we know, a human against another human, or getting a human to be negative towards their own kind. This is the greatest trick of the Matrix, their greatest ability and their greatest achievement. And it is their sole aim in some ways, because that way it keeps the Matrix at low frequency, it keeps their Matrix going. You know, like if you... It's like any species, I suppose. Each species is trying to survive and outdo another species. Even in the natural world, we are under the illusion that that is how it's meant to be. I would say that's an illusion too. I don't think that's how it's meant to be. But it's what we're told, and therefore we say, well, why shouldn't humans be the same? Well, for one thing, because different species are different. And I don't know the true reality of this myself. But I'm only going to say what I think myself, and it is a fantasy, because it isn't a reality now, and it may not have ever been. But, you know, I think something and I say, hey, if it is my own pure thought, as opposed to what is from the Matrix, which is very hard because, you know, you mainly only have the Matrix. And yes, the Matrix does have to, though. This is the funny thing about it, and this is what makes it very difficult to grasp, you know, really, for myself and probably for others too, but depending on how, like I say, how much you can remove yourself from it, and maybe how long you've even known this too, because I haven't known this very long, so it's a real jolt, and it's not only a jolt, but of course I don't, like I say, I would have been quite prepared to merge with the Matrix myself, shall we say, a few years ago, because I thought, hey, you shouldn't be too extreme. You know, we should be able to incorporate the good ideas from anything. Now I dismiss that, because I think we are in a diabolical situation to where you can no longer compromise or give and take, which is not like a human being either. But also in a matrix, you have to do that. You're always going to be compromised and always going to have to compromise, because that's just, it's like if you're living, it's common sense, isn't it? Like, there again, common sense. That means that it's just like logical to I'm sorry to get frustrated, but just that I see these words thrown back at us, you know, like, you'll see people that have no common sense telling you what common sense is. You'll see those of the Matrix saying, yes, it's common sense, it's logical. But it's only logical and common sense from the point of view of the Matrix. But there's nothing logical or common sense for a human being in a Matrix. That's what we just don't get. That's because we've lost the appreciation or the understanding or the belief or the reality that there is really nothing else but the human being. Everything else is a reflection of a human being. A glorious reflection sometimes. Sometimes you'll see a very glamorous, glorious, magnificent, better reflection of a human being in the Matrix. Whether it be through its disciples, its representations, its creators, its demigods, and the God entity itself. But, you know, it's not what really is. It's it's, yes, a reflection of something that is the original. Why would you want an imitation of anything? If you are the original, why would you settle for? Why would you be mingling with imitations? That is because you have been reduced in your mind that you're the imitation, that you're the limited one. You know, are we human or are we dancers? The dancers, in their own minds even, that's right, and even a human can belittle its own body, can belittle its own being. If a human being sees something that they think is more impressive than it, back to the garden, and loses sight of the reality that they were the original and that everything else is a duplicate, duplicates. They're I can't quite explain it. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. I've gone way off track and gone completely into some sort of not only fairyland, and I do like to be what they call esoteric, even though I consider myself a simple and very realistic person, really. I believed in only the tangible reality, I said, for all my life. I like to listen to people who would talk esoteric occasionally, not a real lot, occasionally. I even like my old movies, simple. This song would have escaped me a few years ago, or I would have thought, what an interesting idea, but why would they write such a thing? Are we human or are we only dancers, or are we dancers? Almost implying that are some of us just, well, I would say also, are we human or are we dancers? Are we human, really human, realising what we are at full level, in control of our world, in control of ourselves, of our bodies, of our minds, of our spirit, and all this stuff, which, I'm sounding really good here, and I don't even believe half of it myself because it's not my reality. I believe in something now that is not really my reality. But I must believe it because, I'm prepared to say that it is better than the artificial reality that is presented to us. I don't know if I put this right. I'm saying we need to go back to our roots. But we don't. But in saying that, you have to respect everything that is natural. Basically, I'm going to go into a nutshell again and say, if you respect everything that is natural, but you also respect everything that is natural about yourself, and you don't presume to deviate from what was given and to what is, you say anything that is not of myself and my body as it is of the matrix. That means you are conditioned to think a certain way. If you accept what you are from the day you're born and don't lose that, which is impossible not to because you're in a matrix, you're going to have influences, you're going to have everything around you. This is all the matrix. Everything that is around you is of the matrix. So you're not allowed, as some mock and say, to just be. No, of course you're not. If you could just be. And also, how can you be if those around you are of the matrix too? So that's another thing too. So it becomes a very, I I don't know if I've made any sense. I feel like a fool making these videos. I lose patience, not with myself, because I feel that it's, I know that I shouldn't have to be doing this. I know that the reality has escaped us. We've lost our reality, we've lost our world, and we've lost even our inner world, in the sense that we don't really, we don't even have control over our own thinking. That is manipulated by the Matrix, that is controlled by the Matrix, that is influenced by the Matrix, depending on how far gone we are, I would say that I've always been influenced by the Matrix, and it's consumed me at times. But, maybe there's some things that it was not able to consume. In other words, maybe the Matrix consumes me 90%, but maybe 10% is unacceptable to me. In other words, there might be just some things where the Matrix has not been able to swing me. Like that song. See, that song, that dancer, that one that's asking, are you human or are you a dancer, has been consumed by the Matrix 100%, and willingly so, because there's an awareness there, isn't there? Like the song is about, total awareness of making that choice. It's not like myself where I was consumed subconsciously by the Matrix. But you see, there's still that 10% that you can't let go of. There's some of those grace and virtues, some of that, I threw the thing on the floor because I was disgusted. See, I even threw that's the Matrix. See, they've made me throw, because of frustration in making the video, they've made me throw the few little words that I wrote down to remember the few lyrics. Well, not few, but I just wrote words to jolt my memory of the lyrics because I didn't have time. But, to where you're prepared. You see, if you believe in the Matrix and the Matrix God entity, I don't fully understand it, but you probably have to be convinced that if you're doing something that isn't good, that it will ultimately be good, that it is part of the bigger plan, or that it is part of some spirituality even. Whereas I obviously can't do that. There are some areas, in other words, where I might say, well, look, even if I'm of the Matrix, even if I've been consumed by the Matrix, even if I get possessed, say, even if I think I'm negative completely myself, even if I thought I was part of, that I belonged, is it possible to be a human being and say, hey, what if the Matrix God created me? Some people might think this. It's a God, creates the Matrix, influences everything, has dominion over everything, can create. What if it created me? What if I've got the whole thing wrong? Well, all I'm saying is, if this is so, I'm still walking away from the Matrix and the Matrix God entity, its disciples. It's because, not that I'm allowed to walk away, I'm trapped, because we're trapped in a Matrix, don't forget. How we get out, you don't get out. Nobody gets out of here alive. I think that was some saying. No one gets out of here alive. Well, you have to try and get out of here alive. You don't want to be dead or technological or of the Matrix. But I sound fancy here. But you see, all I'm trying to say is that if there is a small part of you that still finds some things of the Matrix, even if they're real, can you convince a human being to say goodbye to good, goodbye to grace and fortune? Yes, that the songs are there. I've surrendered to that because I believe it is better. Well, there are some that just can't do that. They're saying, no, that cannot be good to say goodbye to all those things. To say goodbye to some of them, yes, you could probably be seduced into saying goodbye to quite a bit, but there are some things that you just can't do. And that is the mark of a real human. Even low, obviously, like myself, you could say we've well fell from grace and from virtue and been possessed and done probably more superficially wrong things and played with the Matrix more than what the negative side appears to have done. That is part of it too. I don't think I put this, and of course it's all an excuse too, but at the same time, it's very easy for me to blame everything on the Matrix, even in my own life. But that's what I say. I think that every wrong decision you make, that comes back to get you more, because you are central to the Matrix, central to the earth, central to the world, central to the creation of things. This is why it happens this way. And that's because you lose sight. The Matrix, I say the Matrix, circumstances, which is the Matrix, will convince you to do wrong things. Because the Matrix messes with the human emotions, messes with the human needs, messes with the way humans are meant to be, meant to live in this world and meant to be brought up because I say, like when you're a baby, you're starting out with a clean slate, but you know nothing, and you don't, the Matrix then has its chance to work its form of magic on you. You're not going to work your own magic. Matrix magic is all technological, all artificial, all negative, because it's a negative world, it's a negative matrix. It's low frequency, A real naturally born human being comes into the world with potential for high frequency, but is immediately hit from the minute they emerge, you could say, with low frequency. If you want to look at it simplistically that way, obviously it's a lot more complicated than that, and I don't understand it, but I keep it simple. I go with it. I think it is so, I see reality in it. And even if it isn't so, I'm sticking with it, okay? Because I've gone too far in that direction now. But either way, as I've said before, it doesn't matter about what, to me it no longer matters what is right or wrong, or what is, correct or not. All I can see is vast negativity on one side. So, even low, I can't see a solution to that. I can't accept that negative matrix as being, a reality that I want. Even though I've got it, of course, and I can't get out of it. But I can't believe, if I think that the human being, as I do think, is the main core and centre of everything. I can't believe that this matrix is meant to be our reality. The only other explanation, I suppose, and I must be folding up, is that there's something that I don't know. Well, I could speculate, okay. Yes, I could speculate that, of course, if I have done all the wrong choices in my life, that it's now headed to where you know, we're left in a matrix that's negative. Now, as we know, I've went over this before. You know, I don't understand why particular people have been left. And it probably doesn't matter because it is just a reality. Maybe that is because it is so close to the end of, of a negative reality, in the sense that, if you can hang on to the idea that you don't like that negativity, and for some, maybe some real human beings, it's not possible for them to let go of that reality that they see that the matrix world is not what they would have wanted, even if they've played in it, encouraged it, been seduced by it, as we all have. And even if they still find some things in it enticing. To realise that, because like I say, it's impossible for me to not think that the matrix is not real and that some things in it are still not okay. That the things that if you've liked things for a lifetime, like some things for a lifetime, it's very hard to let go. Oh, that's the line from the song. You've got to let me go. Yeah, well, that you could take that, like I say, you could take that from the dancer point of view or from the human point of view. So if you listen to the song, it's good to probably take it from both viewpoints. Only that way you have full understanding. But never ever, I would say, lean to the dancer's side. You have to then say, well, look, I'm trying to understand the other side, only because you're in the matrix. But you have to be aware that you're not really part of that, or that you shouldn't be part of it. You are part of it, but you shouldn't be part of it. You shouldn't want to be part of it. And of course, it's very hard if you don't know the way out of it, or to separate yourself from it, or to not be pulled down by it, to not be affected by it. It's absolutely impossible. And if you're aware, that will be, as I've said before, if you're aware of it, and the more you try to separate, the more the matrix will make itself more well known. Because it'll be like, hey, you can't leave us, you can't leave our matrix. You can't, you're not going to be the dancer, we're the dancers. You can't be dancing around. The human's meant to be the dancer. The human's meant to be everything and anything. There should be nothing else. I think I've rambled on far too long here, and I think I lost my point that I was trying to say, even though I'm just making it up. I say that because I don't have any facts or anything tangible about any of it, or at least if I'm talking about the past. If I'm going to say to you right now, we have too many species in this matrix or on this earth. Too many natural species even. Where did they all come from? Or have they been and gone? That's another question too. It all depends on how much this reality is being manoeuvred, how much this reality is being, how much our minds and our psyche is being completely tweaked by the Matrix. Wish I could put better words for these things. How much we're being played. I sometimes feel that I'm being played 100%. That even the things that, like I say, even the things that I would play for may not even exist. So maybe it could just be down to you just playing for yourself in these final stages. If you look at it that way, that's another possibility. I don't know. But how you play maybe is all that counts, I don't know. Because certainly the reality is gone to some extent, I would say. But even that could be a delusion. Maybe it is all real. Maybe there's still potential to turn it all round. Maybe if we threw all the technology away tomorrow, we'd all become clear. Nature would blossom again. We could get our act together and start afresh. Is this possible? I would have serious doubts, personally. Serious doubts about that. In fact, that could be just as much playing in the Matrix, to where you say, well, look, if we keep this but fix up that, we'll be okay. We'll save our world. It's not our world. It's not our world to save. We do not have the potential to save it. Because, if you're at 1%, how can you save a reality that's long passed you by? Then you would have to be going with that idea that I have, getting a headache here just thinking about all this, then you would have to go with that idea that I had, or what I had said in other videos, where you have to have like some sort of domino effect. Is that right? Like, have I used that right? To where one domino, an important domino is hit, and it will depend on which domino, because not all dominoes are the same. All humans are not the same. All dancers are not the same. The Matrix is the same. But we're only dealing with one matrix here. We're dealing with one reality. So for me to think past anything else is overstepping my anything that I could, it's overstepping my ability, shall we say, at 1%. Maybe at a few more percent I might be able to do that. But certainly the cutting the cord does tend to imply that you're cutting from, from your natural abilities. Because I keep going back and saying, hey, I'm going to stick with the idea that a natural human being, in its natural state, conceived and brought into this reality only in everything being natural. No manipulation, no additives, no technical intervention of any sort, no chemical intervention of any sort, nothing altered except pure natural human creation. Now, I can't say, some would differ on these things, which kind of messes me up in the sense that, like, this is new. If someone gives me new information and says, well, hey, what you say might be true, but maybe it wasn't true at the beginning, or this or that. Well, you see, I have to say, look, it is true. It could be true. What is true for a cat may not be true for a dog. or what is true for a bird is not true for a land animal. Maybe not. I mean, there again, I know I'm sounding ridiculous and fancy, and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I only know what I think is true for a real human being. And either way, even if I'm wrong, I don't care. I still think that it is important to keep what is natural. A human being, even if it was 1% and defective, and as a 1% human being, even if, as I said before, even if that was all the potential, if it was only really 2 or 3% was the full potential, which is different to what I do think, but even if that was the reality, I still personally like to keep natural species as they are. Yes, I am not personally, this is just me, I might like, I might like the different breeds that we have of different things. I might like a particular breed that is actually created, okay? I might actually prefer that. I might desire that. I might like that. I'm just saying that now I believe that these things are not how they were meant to be. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Doesn't mean I don't like it at times. Doesn't mean I'm not seduced by it. But I think that is the matrix. We get seduced. We think that it is okay to mess with everything. Why do you mess with something that is created? That is the matrix. That is technology. That is something that I do not think is proper, correct, beneficial. I do not think it should be at all. But it is, and it is the world. And you cannot tell people that mixing things up is not a good thing. My own personal belief is that there should be no mixing. New things should not be brought in. Old things should not be discarded. There should not be, we don't need 1,000 breeds of dog. We should only have whatever was originally there, but we don't. That's human intervention, we would say. I don't think it is. I think it's the matrix, but it's still done by human beings because the matrix makes human beings, like I say, destroy other human beings, infiltrate and change the minds of their fellow human beings. The matrix maybe has to even do this. And that to me tells you that the human being, once again, is the centre of the matrix, is the centre of all, because otherwise it would not be a necessary component. And why would the matrix do that? Why would the matrix God entity do that? If you have control, or if you could just wipe out a species even, you could wipe out a human being, you could wipe out anything, because why do you have to play the game? And you do, because it is a game played out, I don't think I put that right. Does the matrix operate under the idea that although, not all the matrix is of the human, because there's a lot of technology, why does the matrix still have to play only the real human against the real human? Can the matrix only be, is it a possibility that the matrix can only die almost, you could say. Can the earth only die if a human being destroys all humanity or all other spiritual human beings? I don't think I made any sense here. Why would this be? Is this meant to be? Are we supposed to stop it? Are we meant to escalate it? You see, I don't know. Because that's what I say, because to some extent the cord has been cut to where we don't have awareness of what the whole picture is, right? So, see, this matrix that we live in, I don't know, I'm just going to be fancy here if I can. Sound as though I know more than what I do in a way. There's two ways of looking at a matrix, isn't it? It's an enclosed structure, if you want to look at it. We're inside it, right? We can't get out and nothing else can get in. So we're not in connection with what's outside of the matrix. We only know what goes inside of the matrix. And, obviously the lower level we're at, like myself, you feel very cut off. You're aware that things are wrong and that the matrix is there, but you're still not connected to anything else. You want to be, you think you should be, but the matrix makes sure that that doesn't happen too, in a way. The matrix tries to keep things out, I would think. Maybe the matrix can keep things out. But also maybe it's up to the human beings. Because if human beings are at low frequency, we could be contributing to keeping the matrix in play, and therefore we're contributing to keeping, things out. But when I say keep things out, I don't mean keeping beings out from coming in or that sort of stuff. I don't really mean that at all. Because I've already said that everything is already here in the matrix, isn't it? We already have an alien world. Alien simply means not human. That's all alien means to me. Anything that is not human or anti-life, anything that is anti-life is alien or anti-human. Human is the only life, so therefore everything else is alien or anti-life. That's just a word. I just use words. I don't know whether I'm using them in the right context. That's why I'm trying to say when I use a word, because to another person, if you say alien, they might think you mean a little green man or something, or you mean a superior force from outside the matrix or something like that. See, so there could be many meanings. So I just say anything that is not a real human to me is alien, and anything that is not real human is anti-life. Anything that is not human is not life. Human is the only life in a matrix. I could be a bit wrong about that. As I've said before, it depends on how many other life forms are still here. You know what I'm saying? Because I think in my own illusion of the original world, everything was life as well as a human. In other words, everything that is natural is life. Anything that is not natural is not life. Okay, did I put that right or not, or have I got it all muddled up again? Anything that is not natural, as I think natural is not life. Anything that is not a natural human is not life. That's just putting it bluntly and keeping it simple. You know, I'm not going to argue about that because, I can play with my Lulu Archon doll and I can infuse that doll with life, but that is me infusing the doll with spirit. That is me using the doll like a ventriloquist uses a dummy. The dummy has nothing without the life of the human, without the human giving it that life. I don't think I put that properly. I don't know why I brought up Lulu again, but I was going to make some point about that the other day, but there again, it's gone from my mind. As long as you're aware too. See, when I had Lulu was a doll that I had when I was a child. I'll just reiterate in case someone didn't get the other video and also thought it was too ridiculous, which I understand. Because whenever you're doing personal stuff, I'm aware that only, maybe a close friend might be willing to listen to personal stuff, but if you're making a video for someone on the other side of the world that doesn't know your life and maybe doesn't like dolls and maybe is of the not someone who is of the same persuasion, shall we say, whatever you like, you're automatically losing them, So it is hard, and I get that, and I apologise for that, but there's nothing else I can do. I can only do what I can do, I think I lost my thought there, rambling on, trying to explain and apologise for using a doll that I had as a child as an example. But you see, when I had Lulu, right, maybe for you it might be a teddy bear or some other object when you were a child. Or maybe you were the Matrix and didn't do this, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just do it for whoever is listening. When I had Lulu, the little doll, I infused it with my personality and used it and thought that if they didn't like me, that maybe if I used Lulu like a ventriloquist dummy, because she was ever so cute, I thought, that maybe they would like Lulu, that I could express myself through Lulu, the real me, the more friendly me, instead of the kind of shy, reserved child that I was kind of forced to be because my parents were very they're fairly cold in a way. They were a lot more of the Matrix, they were materialistic or even intelligent. My father was intelligent but very cold. Always said love is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Don't waste your time. You'll never find it. If you do find it, you'll probably find that it's not quite as good or there's something wrong in that. And that certainly proved to be true. But what I'm trying to say is that, so I had Lulu and I thought, oh, well, because when you're a child, the Matrix hasn't got to you as much. It takes a few years for the Matrix to take you over. It takes some people over quicker than others. These days it'll probably be taking them over almost immediately. But it eventually takes everyone over. That means the environment, No it would take a very strong baby and child to come right through into adulthood without being influenced by what's around them. That would be near impossible, I would say. But obviously some get more influence than others, should we say. But either way, I guess my point with Lulu was that, at a conscious level, I was aware that she was just a piece of cute plastic moulded into a kind of human form with its cutesy little blue eyes and its pretty blonde hair and its sweet expression. Lulu did have a sweet, innocent, kindly expression, I thought anyway. And, so she was like an extension of myself when I was a child. But what I'm trying to say is I was kind of aware of this, that she was not real and that she